Hi everyone, this is Andreas Duckstein against Tigran Petrosian, which was played in the Varna Olympiad in Bulgaria in 1962, and it's another brilliantly instructive display of defense from Petrosian. At this time he was a well-established grandmaster, but before he took up chess professionally he had a humble living as a caretaker and road sweeper in Moscow. When this game was played he was 35 years old, and his unique style of play was almost fully evolved. In his younger years he played more adventurously, especially in the opening, yet sometimes he got into problems and managed to save himself only with very accurate defense, and it was from such games that his true strength became apparent, and so his prophylactic and negative style of defensive play developed, where he focused on safety above all else, and restricting his opponent's moves as opposed to taking the initiative and attacking himself. He was more than happy to draw with the black pieces, and his reasoning was that if nobody could beat him, then nobody could claim to be a better player than him. As long as he had a few wins along the way as well, then logically he would win every match he played in, and it was a philosophy that served him well. In the World Championship cycle of 1963, he didn't lose a single game in either the Stockholm Interzonal or the Curaçao Candidates Tournament, and these results qualified him to play the then world champion, Mikhail Botvinnik, who he went on to beat with the same style of play, and retained his title for a full 6 years. In 1962, when this game was played, he was also keen to get onto the Soviet national team, and he knew the people in charge wouldn't be impressed with draw after draw, because they had many top level players who could win in style. So he brought a provocative element to his game, as well as his prophylactic defense, which often had the desired effect of making his opponent overreach, and this game is a great example of both these elements of his play. His opponent here was Andreas Duckstein, who was an international master from Austria. Duckstein was playing white, and he started with e4. Petrosian played c6, which is the Caro-Can defense, and he used it regularly. It's a solid and a very hard defense to crack, and it's suited his style well, you know. So he played Duckstein played d4, then he played d5, and then knight c3, d takes c4, knight takes c4, all pretty standard stuff. Bishop f5, knight g3, bishop g6, and these days h4 is the main line, and that's usually met by h6 from black, but that wasn't played so much back then, and knight f3 was played here, and then knight e7, bishop d3, e6, white castled, and queen c7, which is deliberately provocative from Petrosian, and playing in such a way is really a standard tactic when you're playing a weaker opponent. The idea is to create uncertainty in your opponent's mind. Duckstein would probably have been happy with the draw against Petrosian, but after this move he is forced to ask himself whether a win is out of the question. He could play for a safe positional edge, or as Petrosian is clearly planning to castle queenside, he could go for an all-out attack, and his indecision and uncertainty is clear over the next few moves, where he's not sure whether he should attack or consolidate. And the best move for Petrosian instead of queen c7 was probably knight gf6, where it's very hard for white to get any kind of positional advantage. So after queen c7, Duckstein played c4, which is a natural space gaining type of move, although it does weaken the pawn on d4 slightly. An interesting alternative instead of c4 is bishop takes g6, h takes g6, and knight g5, which gives black some problems despite the open h file that he's going to be able to use. The f7 square in particular is going to be difficult to defend. Say for example if knight h6, then queen f3, black's going to have problems finishing his development and getting his king to safety, so there's good initiative there for white, but that wasn't played in the game anyway. c4 was played, and then Petrosian castled queenside, and Duckstein played bishop g6, which gives black the open h file, but relieves some of the pressure that was on d3 before that was played, because at the moment the queen is tied down to defending the bishop, and Duckstein had ideas for his queen, as you'll see. So bishop takes g6 and h takes g6 and then queen a4, which was his idea, you know, but it's a bit kind of blunt and impulsive. It's you know, the queen will soon have to move again, and so it will be a loss of tempo. A better continuation would have been bishop d2, which prepares the move b4 and also has some strong ideas in mind if black chooses to strike in the center with something like c5 or e5, because then the queen can come to a4 as it did before with tempo, because a7 will have to be defended. For example, if e5 here, then queen a4, e takes d4, queen takes a7, c5, b4, and white already has a strong attack forming while black remains fairly undeveloped. So that would have been a wiser continuation, but Duckstein just played queen a4 straight away, and Petrosian played king b8, and here really black is already better than white in terms of position. He doesn't have to worry about an attack from pieces alone, because they're just not close enough, and he's well defended against such threats. And if pawns were involved as well, then it would be a different story, but that takes a while to arrange, which you'll see as the game progresses. Duckstein played b4 straight away, which, you know, he can play the first few moves, but to get them any further he has to have his pieces backing them up. And Petrosian answered that with knight h6, which looks unusual, but it's really the best move for the knight, because the best square for it is f5, and it's going there from h6. And then came queen b3, which is, you know, a loss of tempo. If white had played more precisely, he could have got his queen there in one move. So knight f5 and a4, which is, you know, aggressively continuing the pawn storm, but ignoring the real needs of the position. Bishop b2 would have been better, because it holds back black's central pawn break, which Petrosian was now able to play in the game after a4 with e5. And this is classic positional play in accordance with the teachings of William Steinitz, who was the first undisputed world chess champion and really the father of positional play. His rule in positions such as this one, where the kings are castled on opposite sides, was that an attack on the flank is best met, if possible, with play in the center. And Aaron Nimzovich, another brilliant positional player and author of the great book My System, advocated this rule also, and it seems almost always to be effective. So Duckstein played d takes e5, which is really the best move. If d5, then c takes d5, c takes d5, knight b6, and the pressure starts to mount on the isolated pawn on d5. So d takes e5 is the right move. And then came knight takes e5 and knight takes e5, which is better than, say, for example, bishop f4, just trying to pin this knight, because it's easy to get out of with bishop d6, and then knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop takes e5, queen takes e5, and black has the more solid pawn structure and slightly better central control. For example, d5 is being protected by a pawn for him, whereas white has no such defense for d4 and never can, because he's played impulsively and moved these pawns up straight away. The knight is also effectively pinned because of the mate threat on h2. If it ever moves, then the queen's just going to come down here with mate. So it's better for black, really, that continuation. So knight takes e5, and queen takes c5, bishop b2, queen c7, and c5, which is a questionable move, really. Duckstein was presumably playing for an attack, but he doesn't really have sufficient firepower for it to succeed at the moment. A better move might have been rook a d1, where the resulting position is fairly active and evenly balanced. If, for example, rook takes d1 and rook takes d1, it's not an obvious draw. Okay, that's the end of part 1.